Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name's Alisha, and in today's video I will be doing a book review of The Heir by Kiera Cass. So let's talk about this one. So I'm gonna go ahead and read the synopsis for The Heir by Kiera Cass, and then I will let you know my thoughts. The synopsis says, Princess Adeline has grown up hearing endless stories about how her mother and father met. 20 years ago, America's Singer entered the selection and won the heart of Prince Maxon, and they lived happily ever after. Adeline has always found their fairy tale story romantic, but she has no interest in trying to repeat it. If it were up to her, she'd put off marriage for as long as possible. But a princess's life is never entirely her own, and Adeline can't escape her very own selection, no matter how fervently she protests. Adeline doesn't expect her story to end in romance, but as the competition begins, one entry may just capture Adeline's heart, showing her all the possibilities that lie in front of her, and proving that finding her own happily ever after isn't as impossible as she always thought. Okay, so let's talk about The Heir by Kiera Cass. Now, this is book 4 in the selection series. As the synopsis says, this does take place 20 years after the first selection where her mother and father met. Those 3 books, it was 3 books. It was the selection, the elite, and the one. And it tells the story of their mother and father and how their selection and relationship went and what happened during the selection. This one doesn't really pick up where those left off. I would say that this is more of a companion book to that first trilogy set. It does fall within the same universe as the trilogy, but this takes on a whole different angle. Now, this, like it says, is for the daughter, Adeline, and she does have brothers and sisters, so you see a little bit about them, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, one of her brothers is actually like her twin brother, and I guess technically she is older, so she would get the crown, but she has no interest in having relationships or getting married and taking on that role. There is another book after this with her continued story called The Crown, but we will talk about that in a different video. We'll focus on this one for now. So in The Heir, it is Adeline's story, and it comes to the king and queen's knowledge that, you know, they read the papers about the people in their country. In Ilia, they have what they call the report, which is basically kind of like our president's way of doing like a speech on TV. Kind of the same way. They report back to the people of Ilia about what's going on, what they're deciding, what changes are being made to the caste system that has been dissolved in the selection. This is now implemented in this one, but a lot of people don't like it, but they want to use Adeline as giving her, like having her own selection, which I guess they got rid of and now they're bringing it back to distract the people of Ilia so that they can figure out how to make the world better, in a sense. In this book, I just felt like Adeline was being a brat the entire time. She wanted things a certain way. There was another family living in the castle, and it was a boy and a girl, and the girl kept stealing her tiaras, and so she kept complaining about the girl stealing her tiaras, and, you know, saying that she couldn't wear them because she was not royalty, and it meant totally something different, and it was her tiara, so she couldn't wear it, and so it was little things like that were put into the story, which I get. It's part of the author showing her character, Adeline's character, and how she behaved, and she really had that sense of she was royalty. She had to have things her way, and it couldn't be any other way. But she really didn't want to participate in the selection that her parents were like, you should do this. It'll give the people a distraction, and we can figure out how to fix the problem, of whatever problem they had. She didn't want to do it. She eventually, I guess, got talked into it, and so they did it very, quickly, but it was kind of like a compromise in the same way. Like, Adeline said, I'll do the selection, but I'm only giving you 3 months, and then after that, if nothing comes of it, then they all go home and everything goes back to normal. So she really didn't have she didn't want to do it at all, and her parents had to agree to the terms for her to do the selection, which is really bizarre. It seemed like she was like, okay, Mom and Dad, I'm gonna do this, but here's how it's gonna go. And I was just like, I know that they're her parents, but they're also king and queen, so can you talk to the king and queen like that? So that was a little off, but that, again, could be another character thing. But moving on with the different selection parts. With the different parts of the selection, it was definitely a Adeline's way or no way, and there were definitely some instances where I thought she was a little harsh and a little brutal, but again, that could be her character showing through. For example, in the selection, they have to eliminate, and they have to narrow it down to one. So the one towards the end. Think of it as like The Bachelor and The Bachelorette shows. It's kind of like that. 35 come in and only one come out the winner. Same thing in a sense. This is kind of like that. I've heard it be described as The Bachelor meets The Hunger Games, because they have different castes, or, well, they call them castes in here, but it could be as like the different districts. And then, so you have 35 guys, in this case, come in, and it's narrowed down to one. But because Adeline has no intention of getting down to the one, she thinks that she can axe everybody in 3 months and then go back to her normal life. And so one of her instances of saying, you can go home, she was very brutal about it. She was just like, you made a comment, I didn't like it, you can go home. She would go to someone else and she would go, you think you're smart, but you're not, you can go home. And it was little things like that. Like, some of them, it was like no rhyme or reason. It was like, I don't like you, you can go home. So she really was, in the beginning, not like she was not playing fair. She was like, I'm going to get this done and over with. I'm going to be very cutthroat about it. And we're going to finish this very quickly. And I'm going to go back to my life. So in that instance, especially with this book, I did not like her character. I thought she was a brat. But by the end, I will say that it was like you could see that there was like a turnaround. And the author did leave this off on a cliffhanger, so that you had book 2, or like, I guess this is book 4, so book 5, The Crown. And that's where everything continued. So with everything that happened in this book, it did show some instances where like people of Ilia didn't like Adeline, and she hadn't really been out in the public, so the public didn't know her. So they, they went out on a parade in one scene, and at one point people just started throwing food at her, and she had no idea or understand why they would do that. So that was a little like knocked her down a notch, kind of bring her back down to reality. It kind of infuriated her at the same time, but it, like, you could tell it knocked her down a notch. She thought that she was high and mighty, and then they knocked her down. So, but by the end of this book, I will say, like, in the beginning she wasn't very likable, but I could start warming up to her at the end. So for that, I gave her this book 4 out of 5 stars, and I highly recommend that you guys read this one. Definitely read the first 3 books, and I think they show you, yeah. So they show you the first 3 books here in the back of the book. So this is the Selection, the Elite, and the One. Let me see if I can get it to focus on the books and not me. But that's the first 3 trilogy. And then this, like I said, is kind of like a companion duology. Because there's only 2 books of her story. But there was 3 of the first 3 trilogy type books with her mom's selection. But I would definitely read those first and then read this one. And then you still kind of get the sense of what's going to happen with the duology. But I really like it. 4 out of 5 stars, and I recommend that you guys read it. Well, that is all for me in this video, guys. If you have read this book, leave me a comment down below and leave me your thoughts about it. And if you liked this video, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in my next video. Happy reading, and bye!